Hello. So I hope you can see this PowerPoint. Since I don't have a projector, I'm just going to have to do this. So this is my presentation on a 3-course meal for EL instruction, and I gave it a food theme to make it relatable to hungry teachers. So here we go. And then it says, caution, this presentation might make you hungry, so grab a snack. And teachers, of course, it's after school, so it's okay if they're hungry and they want to grab a snack during this presentation. So this is just a fun little thing I put in there. Okay, so if you can read this, it's a little bright. Let's see, there we go. Okay, so the first course is our appetizer, which is visual scaffolding. And then we go into the main course, which is the cognate strategies, which is the more meatier strategy. And then the dessert for today is the story reenactment. So we're going to have a lot of fun with this. Oops. Okay, so this is our first strategy, so visual scaffolding. So I want you to talk with the person next to you about how these 4 objects could help explain directions for an English learner. So I would just have, obviously you're by yourself, but if I was with a professional development, I would have them all talk with their colleagues about this. Okay, so, and then I'd come back together and say, why is this more effective than words? And then I'd talk about how directions is usually given to students orally, but if you put it up on the board like this, using visual cues, it can really help them understand what they have to do next because they don't have to decipher the words or decode the words. So this will also help independent activities. So let's say during guide reading you are busy with groups and you give a independent work that involves writing and coloring and cutting and pasting. So you just put this up on the board to make sure that they understand what step goes first, so first, second, third, fourth, and most EL learners will know those numbers. And then it also will help, so students are coming up, what do I do now? Well, did you do all the 4 steps? Okay, this looks like it's a little difficult to read. All right, so this is just the instructions on how to implement the visual scaffolding into the classroom. So first, obviously, you want to identify the vocabulary words that's in the unit that are specific to what you are studying. So you want to get some visual images if it's drawings or photographs. And then you want to collect them. So once you've identified the vocab, you want to collect the visuals using Google or magazines, really anything that has visuals on it. And then you're obviously going to put it somewhere. You need to put it into a file of some sort. So if that, for you, if it's more of a traditional style that you want to cut out pictures and put them into a file for your desk or in the classroom, that's fine. Or if you want to do it all on your computer and you want to find pictures off Google or Clipart and put it into a file that you can use for all times during the year. So, and you could also even alphabetize that list or the visual file to help you when trying to figure out the vocabulary words for the unit. So that'll help you a lot to have it alphabetized. And then, oops, go back. And then I also put in there that it would be great to engage all the students in collecting these visuals, especially with the technology that we have today in our schools. I think it would be great that students have a role in that visual collection. Okay, so for instance, this could be pictures that students collect. So this is a unit on our community that I kind of came up with. All these pictures actually came from Google. So you could, like for instance, the Farmville community, you could have pictures of the police department. The fire department, I have the policemen and women, and then the grocery store, But you could even have, your own police or your own mailman if you wanted to. So it really can be personalized as much as you want, which is why I really enjoy this strategy. And I think it's great for English learners, so they can look up at the board and say, "Oh, I know that red truck is a fire truck," and they might only be able to say it in Spanish, but at least they're making that connection. Oh, this one's a little tough to read. Okay, so, this one is just a question. So this is our second course, our main entree, yummy, yummy. And it says, in what ways is being bilingual a help in understanding vocabulary? So I would just have the audience turn and talk with each other about the quote or the question and discuss how English learners connect their own language to the English language so that they can understand it. So after they have discussed for a few minutes, I would say that language acquisition researchers have found that students benefit from being aware of cognates, and children can be taught to use cognates as early as preschool. So that is super young, and I think if we provide this strategy for our English learners at an early age, that it will really be beneficial for years to come, even as they become more English proficient in English, I should say. And then I'd also add that 30 to 40% of all words in English have a related word in Spanish, which means that when we are looking at English words, 30 to 40% of those words Spanish students will know. And although that's not 100% of all the words, it's still a big portion, and I think that has a lot to say. I think that's very powerful, that we should use this strategy as much as possible, depending on how our Spanish learners are, how much proficiency our Spanish learners have. So, moving right along. So this is my slide about the instructions for cognate strategies. So just how to implement this one into your classroom. There is a lot of words on the slide, but I just wanted everyone to have the information on exactly how to do it. So because this one might be unfamiliar to some teachers, so first you identify cognates for words being taught in English. So you identify them depending on your unit or the book you're reading. Then you provide instruction in the meanings of the English and Spanish cognates. I think it's important that they're able to code switch between each of the cognates, English and Spanish, so that they know, okay, well, this one means this one and this one means that one. Even though they are similar, they might have different meanings. And then also with that, the focus on the spelling differences between the two languages, so that they do understand, okay, this is a Spanish word and then this is the English word, even though they are similar, but they do have different spellings. And of course, spelling isn't going to be the main focus. The main focus is so that they can understand the comprehension aspect, but and the meaning, but this is also important too, the spelling. And then you want to adapt the cognate strategies to meet the English language developments of your students, which I'm going to talk about in the next slide. And then vary your cognate instruction approaches, which I have some examples too. And then you just want to encourage students to post cognates wherever you feel best fit, in their journals, on the walls. So just have them be able to make those connections visually as well. So then here's my little picture of the, kind of hard to see, the white is hard to see, isn't it? The ingredients to make cognate strategies. So you could have students raise their hand or sort the cognates, which would be more of a independent work with that. But and then you could have them identify multiple meanings of the cognate. Use sticky notes, which I always love, because you could have them find cognates in the books that they're reading, or during shared reading, you could have them write down them on the sticky notes, and you could have them highlight words that have Spanish cognates. So then this really is just a chart, a visual to show the teachers like where the strategy of cognates falls for each of these developmental English language learners. So we have pre-production, early intermediate, later intermediate, and then early fluency. So it really just depends on the English learners in your classroom and how you would implement the cognates, depending on where they are. So you might, for pre-production, produce just visuals to support understanding. And then at early intermediate, you would choose challenging words from a text students are reading and write the English and Spanish cognates next to each other on the board. And then for the early fluency, continue to explore nuances of meanings, have Spanish students read Spanish definitions aloud when they need clarification. So this really is just bridging the two languages together. So. Okay, so then this is a fun activity. Your turn. Can you guess the English words from this list? And if you know Spanish, don't give out the answers. So then I would have everyone to you can work with a partner or by themselves to write down all of the English words from this list of the Spanish cognates. So give them a few minutes to look at them. And then after they have tried to figure them out, ask them what they had for each word, but don't give them the answers until the next slide. So just to kind of get a feel of what they were thinking for this. Okay. Hopefully you can see that. All right, so after they turn and talk, I'll ask them what they thought this group of words all have in common, or what type of unit they think they all come from. It'd be interesting to know if they actually get this right, because it is a little bit challenging if you haven't read this in a while, but it actually, all the words are from the first paragraph of the Declaration of Independence. So you have curso, course, politicos, political, igual, equals, opinion, opinion, or opinion, opinion, cosas, causes. And I would actually read the Spanish words with a Spanish accent so they can kind of hear how similar they are. So curso, course, politicos, political. Since I do have a Spanish background or Spanish classes in my repertoire. So yeah, this is just a fun little activity. So to conclude this, I'd say notice how you all were thinking about what word it looked like in the English language to figure it out. Wouldn't this strategy be helpful for a bilingual learner? They are doing the same thing as us, except using their home language to identify the words. So when we see this group of Spanish words, we're constantly our brain is thinking, what word does that look like? And they're doing the same thing when they read an English word. So this is just a kind of light bulb moment for teachers. Okay, this is just a fun little wake-up thing. What is your all-time favorite dessert and why? So I just ask them, get a poll of what their favorite dessert is. Doesn't have to be one on here. And then I'd say that chocolate cake is my favorite because I love chocolate, anything, and it makes me happy. So this is just fun. Am I making you hungry yet? I've saved the best for last, so now they know that dun dun dun, dessert. And this is let's see if it'll play. This is our dessert of story reenactment, and I have a little video. Let's see if it's gonna play.
All right, everyone, this is a stick-up. Don't anybody move. Now empty that safe. Money, money, money. Stop it, you mean old potato. Quiet, Bo Peep, or your sheep get run over. Help us. Oh, no, not my sheep. Somebody do something.
Reach for the sky.
Oh, no, Sheriff Woody. I'm here to stop you, One-Eyed Bart. Yo, how'd you know it was me? Are you...
Okay, so I could play this whole video if I had time, but for the sake of time, I'm just wanted to show you it. So story reenactment is a strategy that encourages students to act out stories after they have read them or have heard them. So raise your hand if you've ever seen the movie Toy Story before. Is this reenactment different than what happens in the real Toy Story? So obviously we've watched the whole thing to see if there was any changes. This video is actually a make-believe ending, but it was funny and a good example of how a story can be retold in a different way. So however, for the sake of helping students comprehend a story, we are going to talk about how story reenactments, when they are told correctly, can help EL students comprehend a text. So obviously with this Toy Story, it was a different ending. And I think it does kind of show that, you know, you've read the story and you understand what the ending is, but you can change it too. So then I would ask everyone, so how might a story reenactment told correctly help an EL learner? So I'd have them think about that for a couple of minutes, or a couple seconds, I mean. So after everyone has thought about the question, so reiterate the story. I just want to reiterate that the story reenactment is a great way for ELs to use language from a book or movie, in this case, that they have read or heard, to better comprehend the text by acting it out in sequence. It is also super fun for students of all ages to dress up into character. This is just a way to bring what they've read or heard to life, and it really will help them with comprehension. And you can do this with any grade and any book or unit. Okay, here we go. So this is just the instructions for how to implement a story reenactment. You read the story. The student or the teacher retell the story, gather and make the props, which is so fun for everyone, and then you store the props and then use the props for retelling and assess the retellings. So this is important, that this strategy, you can assess students based on the retellings because you've talked about the book and you're using props and you're doing all this to really understand the text. So then I would finish with this recap of your 3-course meal. So you had your visual scaffolding for your appetizer, cognate strategies, and then story reenactment. So on a piece of paper in front of you, I would like you to jot down a strategy that stood out to you the most and explain how you could implement it into your classroom with your students. So this is just a kind of exit ticket for me to see what strategy kind of stood out to them the most. And I'd just like to know kind of some feedback about my presentation to see if it was effective or not. So yeah, that is it. Thanks for watching.